Hello one and all, and welcome back to Fix Your Boat. Captain's log, let me try and calculate what the date is. Captain's log, 7th of April 2024. So this is Fix Your Boat, the relaunch, because there has been a considerable hiatus in my episode generation. Obviously, I've been generating the material for Fix Your Boat by living my life every day, but for various reasons, which I will summarise, I haven't got round to doing a video for a while. Now, the reason for that is various. The reasons are various. Last video was about January the 27th or something, and I took that video down because a couple of people contacted me and said, "Greg, you don't look so good in that video. You know, you look run down." And I saw a bit of the video today, and that indeed was true. So I took that video down, and that video was just after the point where the engine had been successfully installed. And so one would have thought maybe a time of celebration and relief, but it didn't quite work out like that. It puts me in mind of when you finish your finals at university, for example, and all the time that you're studying for them, or any exams, you think, God, I'm going to feel so good when this is over. And actually you kind of experience a crash because you've been living hyper adrenergically. You've been living on the edge of your nerves, and that was what happened. Now, the slogan of Fix Your Boat, this channel, is Fix Your Boat, Fix Your Life, Fix the World. And it turns out that that metaphor bit back at me with a vengeance, because what happens when your boat is broken? Turns out you're broken as well. By which I mean that at the point where I finished, the engine was installed, and that particular terribly stressful period of time had finished, I became ill, and I just couldn't go. You know, I was eating, and I just wasn't managing to. It was very poor output, let's say, and that went on for 2 weeks, and I think things just completely ground to a halt. And I think the reason is stress, because you need to actually relax, believe it or not, to perform on the John, on the throne. And after a long period of stress, such as I had, which was more stress than I thought I was under, because I didn't feel day to day that I was mega stressed, but looking back at it now and having got over the hump of it and felt the tension releasing over those subsequent weeks, I was very stressed. I was pretty near my limits. Ouch, bit my tongue. I was over the limits in some way because, of course, my system shut down. And so that was one thing. The other big problem was that at virtually the same day that the boat engine was restored, I lost my dinghy, which I'd borrowed, and I had to give it back, and I had to organise another one. So for 10 days I was sort of sofa surfing with friends who kindly put me up, because I was at that point, the funds, the coffers were completely drained, as you can imagine. So I had this kind of double stress going on, and this weird suspended feel to my life. I tried to cut that episode and let it out there to at least inform people of the good news, and I took it down because people rightly pointed out I looked battered. And I thought, well, I must summon my strength. I must recover and get back onto the good foot. When I got back onto the boat, things began to restore themselves in terms of my health, thank goodness, because that's a very, very worrying thing. You know, it really is a worrying thing. In fact, I realised how health is wealth. This is one of the key points, isn't it, in life? You think, well, I'm not wealthy, but if you're healthy, by God, you're wealthy. I mean, you could have, it occurred to me, the owner of a, say, super yacht, £50 million yacht, staff everywhere, tarts in the bedroom, everything you could possibly want. And if he experienced just what I experienced, which wasn't incredibly uncomfortable, by the way, but it was just so confusing and disturbing in itself, that even without any pain, which surely would have followed had it gone on for much longer, it was, if such a person had experienced that for a month, let's say, and then somebody had come up to him and said, you know, I can sort that out for you, just sign here, mate, sign here, I'll get all of this and you can do one good jobby. I think most of those millionaire oligarchs would accept that deal at that point in time. So what's the price of a jobby? It depends. But since then, every performance, shall we say, when the curtain comes down, I do feel like bursting into applause and cheering and giving a standing ovation, because I truly value the process now for what it is, and it just reminds us how many of those things, in the case if you're blessed with good health, operate in order to support your life. So where was I? That was really something. I got back on the boat, and eventually what happened then was I still didn't want to make an episode despite feeling better, because I was just enjoying being back on the boat, poor as a church mouse, but with a restored engine, which just, well, I spent a few days doing really very little, maybe strumming my guitar a bit, just relaxing, kicking back, listening to some music, and just enjoying the feeling of all of that stress leaving my body, which I could feel it leaving my body, you know. And yes, it was a great unwinding. Thereafter, I had sold some tickets for people to come over here, and they came over here. My brother visited and a friend visited, and we went out cruising. So that took up a couple of weeks of preparation and a couple of weeks of cruising. And then since then, really, I've been very, very busy fixing the boat, as opposed to making YouTube videos about myself and about the theoretical notion of fixing a boat and the metaphysical implications of fixing a boat. And yes, actually fixing swim ladders and plumbing and rigging and stuff, and setting things to rights to get the boat to a better standard. Now currently, as you can see, I'm in a different, well, you probably can see, I'm in a different location, and I'm going to, well, why don't we just, I wonder if I can change this camera angle here and you can see where I am. Yes, indeed, I didn't know it would do that live, but yeah, this is one of the islands of the Andamans, Ko-Rock Nok, which means rock bird. And actually, I don't know whether rock means rock the same, but anyway, nok means bird. And oh, it's just absolutely magnificent here. I mean, it's completely idyllic. And I'm going to cut in a moment to some ambient footage of me walking around here, which I'm going to do a voiceover of, which is a slight change to the format that I've got planned, where I will include more ambient footage from my life, just to add a bit of variety and insight into my existence, and not just my existence, but I suppose the whole mission of Fixyerboat. So there we are. That's why I haven't been online. This is a relaunch, and I've just effectively summarised why that was the case, and now I'm going to talk more broadly about what we've got in store in the future, and also I'm going to go through some conclusions that I've had over the past few weeks, because far from not having any material to share with you in terms of what has become the major content of Fixyerboat up to this point, at least, it's the psychological perspectives on life that come with a change of lifestyle and with certainly a change in economic fortunes, and how interesting and beguiling those are. It's not that I didn't have enough insight, it's just I was completely overwhelmed with a flood of realizations. It was like taking the cork out of a bottle when the engine went back in, and just a sort of torrent, really, of ideas, which took a long time to settle down. Every time I went to think about what am I going to put as content in the next episode, my thoughts would change again. So I've summarized those conclusions, and the next thing I'm going to do is a voiceover of some of the beautiful surrounds that we've got here. The scenery around here, and various ambient footage taken over the last few days, and I'm going to share some of the conclusions that I reached, and as well outline where I'm going to take the channel from here. So see you in a moment. And here we are, as we are on the pier here at Co-Rock Knock, and that is very much how it appears in the morning, except in real life it's even more delicious and splendid. This is one of the national parks in Thailand, and they are generally fairly remote islands, and there's just a few visitors, so they have a little setup on shore there. Tiny little restaurant which opens for a couple of hours every day, and this sort of idyllic island surround. So I'll just let that roll. So my conclusions, what have I concluded after these major changes in my life? Many of which were unbidden. I didn't seek to set out my life in a way in which I would be in exile here, because I'm kind of in exile. These are days in the wilderness. But if you had to choose wilderness to be in, I would choose this. And the first thing is, really, you can't help but fall in love with these sorts of surroundings if you have access to them. And it's an enormous privilege, of course, to be able to explore what are some of the most beautiful parts of the planet. So I am in exile, and like any decent prophet in exile, you've got to fill your day with something, right? So your mind inevitably turns to what are the most important things in life, from the world that you left behind, the world that you, in my case, intend to return to, because I'm not setting myself up to be some sort of refugee from reality. I'm just fascinated by this view of reality, which has a structure to it which is built necessarily from having to do with less materially, and not having the ongoing and continual purpose of hunting down money every day, and dealing with a lot of the complications from living in a sophisticated society, because it's true to say I don't have any regulation to do here. I do have to get a visa every year and check in every 3 months for my address, but it's not the same as it is when you're burdened with the administration of running a household back in the West, which takes up some of your precious time, doesn't it? Now, I immediately felt empathy with this guy, because here he is, he's setting off into the unknown, not quite sure what he's going to encounter, and he's going to have to make sense of things as he goes along and examines the leaves and the twigs and the stones and the boundaries. He's got his whole house packed on his back, much as I've got my whole life packed into my boat. So, yes, I did feel a lot of empathy with him. And as you watch these creatures and you have contact with nature, it reminds me of fundamental things. But I guess you find out what level of hermit you are, what level of wild man you are. Are you the log cabin hardcore, 40 years in the wilderness, never speak to anybody again, make friends with grizzly bears and then die and return to nature? That would be a category 5. Or are you, perhaps like me, a category 2, that you enjoy all of this, but I want to return to the world and bring some of this perspective back into the world where my business is definitely not finished. I didn't actually ask to end up here, but you have to orientate yourself wherever you are, and you have to make the best of it. And my goodness gracious me, here is a wonderful place to be. But I have had to re-educate myself to a degree to not worry so much, or simplify, let's say, what you want from a day, what I want from a day. Let's keep it in the first person. And as long as I'm not more in debt at the end of the day, which I often was, even though I was working my nuts off in the UK, then I think that is a successful day, and you've fed yourself and you haven't done any harm, and you've just gardened your own mind to make it a better place. Then you, I think, will go and make the world a better place as you interact with it. And even if I didn't do anything else in my whole life except hang about these sorts of tropical paradises, watching hermit crabs, like some sort of, probably in the end making up little conversations for them, like Johnny Morris. Some people might remember him. Even if you only just took care of your own mental business and lived within yourself, then you'd be doing the world a favour. I mean, that's your first duty, and that's enough. That's the job of being you. But then you understand as you encounter people. By the way, we're in Koh Ha here, which is just Ha is 5, and there are 5 rocky outcrops here, and they have an absolutely amazing presence. They're doing this all day while you're going about your business, and it just impresses itself upon you. What was I saying? So even if all you actually do is look after your own mental business, then that's enough in life. And do no harm. That's enough, I feel. We need to simplify our lives. But then you come into contact again with, because of course I might spend a few days on the boat, I might spend a few days cruising around, then I might spend a day on a beach with lots of affluent Western and increasingly Eastern people from Eastern Europe, lots and lots of Russians. They're the new money around here. And you kind of get this sense of affluence and involvement and the incredible miracle of modern life, such as it is, which we're living in worrying times, but it is still a miracle that we've built all of this world that you can take part in. It's very difficult for me to go back and full-bloodedly take part in it because I'm so bothered by the wrinkles, by the flies in the ointment that are the political machinations and maneuverings by powerful people to try and impose a new form of feudalism upon the world and to grab and acquire power and turn us all into livestock and sheeple. That, I think, is definitely going on. And the fact that money has been so corrupted with fiat currencies, and money is a very damaged commodity. Problem is that we, as people, can trade our time for money, but there are people who can just manufacture money. There are people who can manufacture money. They're governments, they're corporations, they're criminal enterprises, I would say, as well. And that all cheapens everybody else's standard of life. So I've had a lot of time to do research. That's one thing that you get, which is extremely valuable when you've fallen behind the back of the sofa like I have. You get a lot of time to do in-depth research. And what you see is that people of my generation, people that I know, are hyper-normalized and kept within an information bubble. And that information bubble is composed of very, very purposeful neuro-linguistic programming and critical faculty bypass by repeating messages such as climate change or COVID, domination of the mainstream media, taking things and repeating them over and over again until the subconscious apprehends those things as true. And this enables the stage to be set for principally warfare against other nations, which are wars of acquisition. That's what's going on in Ukraine. And there's multiple fronts on which we're being attacked, and they're all to do with exciting our fear with the climate scam. It's a scam, by the way. I have done several videos on this of absolutely fatal errors in the whole physics and philosophy of CO2 based warming. It's a scam. If you, like me, had the time to look into this and you studied it and you studied all the sources that are available, you would know it's a scam. Okay, so but most people don't know that yet, or we might be reaching some critical mass of people that are beginning to understand that. And that's the thing, the levers of power are being vigorously operated and somewhat in panic by these global elites because the information age and the internet are corroding their power base. We're taking down the curtain and we're seeing what's behind it. But so the major things that are going on are we're going to be controlled by pandemics and by the climate scam, and there will be attacks on our food and an attempt to turn us into serfs, into modern economic units without freedom, without choice, without agency, effectively economic commodities. That is all going on right now. Okay, and if you had the time to study it as I do, you would conclude the same, I would suggest. The one I forgot to mention is that the whole existence and methodology around fiat currency is also just theft, basically. We use money to acquire things, and we've become completely familiar with that. But money is corrupted because there are entities that can create money which we cannot as people. We can only trade our time for money. And therefore, those that create money are deliberately inflating the money supply. That creates inflation. And inflation is gradually, year by year, making us all poorer and poorer and poorer. We should be enjoying the benefits of increased productivity from technology, and we do to a degree. But the more money you print, you can completely negate all of those benefits and impose poverty upon the majority of the world. And when you impose poverty and money is debt, because money is debt, it's not attached to gold or property or anything real, then you get inflation, and inflation eventually breaks economic systems, and people go bankrupt, and the assets wash upstairs to those who already have. Okay, so that is these are the principal scams which are going on, and I need to gird my loins and get back in there and try and make a difference. That's what I'm going to try and do. Until then, I'm out here, preparing myself for re-entry and reorganizing myself. And I just thank God that I've had this opportunity, albeit that I've nearly crashed and burnt. And really, I've just saved myself with this boat. This boat has saved me. This is quite interesting. This footage here, this is where Taya took me to a back camp where there were some Thai workers, and they just kind of feed you if you turn up. And that's how life should be. I love the simplicity of it. I also love the affluence. I love the preening. I love the display and the sophistication of modernity. But this is also just turning up somewhere and just being fed in the morning with simple food. It's just one of the great pleasures in life, and we should never lose sight of that. But of course, we're being atomized and pulverized and turned into disconnected economic units. Look, everybody, fix your boat, fix your life, and let's fix the world.